So I'm going to do a bit of a different video today. This is something new. Justice Society of America, The New Golden Age by Jeff Johns, and illustrated by a few different artists. Mikkel Janin, Jerry Ordway, and a few others. So I'm a big fan of the Justice Society of America, probably right up there with the Legion of Superheroes. Um, Going back to the mid '80s when they had a bit of a renaissance. So this is a new series, an ongoing series that's still being released, and this collects the first 6 issues of it. The story is based around the probably the I'd say the main character in it is the Huntress, who is the daughter of Catwoman and the Golden Age Batman, and the main villain in it is Per Degaton. And so I really like Per Degaton. When the All Star Squadron came out in the 80s, Per Degaton was the original villain and has had quite a history. If I would say Per Degaton is probably my favorite of the Justice Society villains. And someday I might do a whole series on Per Degaton through the years from the Golden Age to the Copper Age and right up to today. So it is a very, very, very complicated, hard to follow story. I will admit that. So I did 2 read-throughs, and the issue is that Per Degaton originally was just he his mentor, or he was an assistant for a scientist who created a time machine, and so he decided to use that time machine to commit crimes, killed the scientist Professor Z, and he doesn't have any superpowers, but Per Degaton, if he had a superpower, it would be his ability to figure out um, how changes in the time stream would affect future events. So he could go back in time, change things, and manipulate time to his advantage. And then the Justice Society would continually have to go in and take care, clean up. And the way the stories generally ended was um, Per Degaton would go back to where he was working for Professor Z, who he had murdered, but now he's back alive, forgets about any of the crimes he committed, and the Justice Society would also forget. Now he clearly has become significantly more powerful, and I don't know necessarily that, I think his powers are scientific, but he's really able to manipulate time on a, I guess, kind of a micro scale. So he can fight people using time. So, for instance, he would say, fighting Dead Man or something, he could reverse time so the Dead Man is brought back to life and then kill him. So it starts off with kind of, he's become like kind of a voyeur. And I'd seen him in other comics where he was kind of just a voyeur at this point, going around observing. But now he's trying to destroy the Justice Society through, I believe, 3 different time periods. Again, it's really complicated. And this is often the case in time travel stories. And for whatever reason, and after 2 read-throughs, I'm still not sure why, Huntress is kind of outside of his. He's able to control everyone. Here he just snaps Dr. Fate's helmet, and this is, I think, the 30th century version of the Justice Society. The art in here is really nice. It's pretty slick. But we have a variety of different artists, so you can see. And then in this case, we're going back to the 70s when they had a series in the 70s, I think in the early 80s or something like that, and it was pretty cool. And so we're jumping around all over in time, and we've got a ton of characters. There's Detective Ape, or whatever his name is. Um, Many, many characters here. This was the famous story where they were forced to appear before Congress and then shut down in 1951. So they stopped being a thing for, until the Renaissance in the 1970s. And so Per Degaton is now extraordinarily powerful. And we have tons and tons and tons of characters, including, what is it, the Challengers of the Unknown, I think. And Jeff Johns sometimes feels like he's trying to create a whole universe unto himself. So if you follow Jeff Johns' stories, a lot of times he will use characters that I'm not sure much of anyone else uses. Uh, I recommend the book, but again, I'm still not sure what happened because it is so complicated. Jumping around at least three different time periods, tons and tons of characters, different versions of Dr. Fate. Here we are in World War II. So we have World War II. We have all the way up to the 30th century. And so Jeff Johns is clearly trying to create, as it says, a new golden age. And one of the interesting things in here is this is from the kind of a play on the Who's Who, which came out in the 80s. And I collected the whole series. I think it was 12-issue series. And so it talks about, for instance, Betsy Ross and Molly Pitcher working with Miss America, who is a character from Military Comics. And it says here, Military Comics, that these characters were from Military Comics, number 6 and number 7 in the 1940s. And I had to look it up because I was like, oh, I never heard of Betsy Ross and Molly Pitcher. That's because this is not true. They're just making it up. And I think it's kind of interesting and kind of cool that he's creating a 1940s mythology that includes references to comics that it did exist. There was Military Comics number 6 and 7, but they were not in it. So we have The Boom, where it discusses that her first appearance was Flash Comics number 10 and goes through a whole story from 1940, which simply did not happen. And so it's creating a whole parallel timeline. And I think it's cool. I like that. So again, I recommend it, but the caveat is maybe your comprehension reading is better than mine, but I really, really struggle to understand the story. And so they're going to be coming out with a second edition or a second volume next year, and I will stay with it because I think it's interesting, and I like stories where you can read them multiple times and get more out of them each time. And I probably will go through again and see if I can get a better grasp of the story. So that's something new: Justice Society of America: The New Golden Age by Jeff Johns.